Your kick and bass can both sound excellent in solo and still collapse when they play together. The kick loses its front edge. The bass turns into a cloud. You raise one, then the other, and the low end only gets louder, not clearer. Now make one controlled change. Every time the kick arrives, the bass steps back for a fraction of a second, then returns. The kick keeps its punch, the bass keeps its weight, and the groove suddenly has a shape. That is the familiar sidechain compression move. But it is only the front door. It can also clear a vocal, control long reverb, turn a flat pad into a rhythmic part, or make a riser stutter. We will build 10 ducking techniques from the rooting up, choose the right control method, and check that each effect improves the mix instead of merely making it move. The goal is not more pumping, the goal is intentional movement. Before the 10 techniques, get the signal flow straight. Sidechain compression has a trigger and a target. The trigger is the signal the compressor listens to. The target is the signal whose gain gets reduced. In the classic setup, the kick is the trigger, the bass is the target, and the compressor sits on the bass channel. Threshold sets the action point. Ratio influences the response above it. Attack controls how quickly reduction develops. Release controls how quickly the target recovers. Knee, look ahead, hold, and detector filtering may change the shape too. Treat every number as a starting point. A fast attack can clear space immediately, but if it is too fast, it may pull the life out of the target. A longer attack can let some target transient through. A short release can chatter or distort on low-frequency material. A long release can keep the target pinned down after the moment of conflict is gone. Watch gain reduction, but listen in the full mix. 2 to 4 decibels can suit kick and bass. 1 or 2 may be enough under a vocal. The question is how much space, for how long, and with what character. Tip 1 is the classic kick-to-bass duck, done with a purpose. Insert a sidechain-capable compressor on the bass. Route the kick to its external detector. Start with a moderate ratio, a quick attack, and a release that lets the bass return before the next important note. Lower the threshold until the kick becomes easier to identify, then stop before the bass feels like it has a hole punched through it. An attack around 5 to 20 milliseconds, release around 100 to 300, and 2 to 4 decibels of reduction can be useful starting ranges. But a long kick and sustained sub need a different shape than a short thump and plucked bass. Bypass the processor. If the low end is clearer with it on and does not simply sound smaller, you are close. If every bass note gasps, shorten the recovery, reduce the amount, or use frequency-selective ducking later in the chain. Check arrangement first. Shortening a bass note, changing an octave, or choosing a complementary kick can reduce the processing required. Sidechain is not permission to ignore the source relationship. Tip 2 is vocal-triggered ducking for everything competing with the lead. Dense guitars, pads, keyboards, and synth layers can cover a vocal even when no single track seems too loud. A static EQ cut may create room, but it removes that tone for the entire song. Sidechain ducking makes the space conditional. When the vocal is present, selected background elements move back. When the vocal pauses, their full tone returns. Route the dry lead vocal to the sidechain of a compressor on one competing instrument, or, more efficiently, on a carefully chosen background bus. Use a soft response, moderate attack and release, and begin with only 1 or 2 decibels of gain reduction. Listen for intelligibility, not an obvious level wobble. If release is too short, the backing may flutter between syllables. If it is too long, it can stay suppressed after the line. Let recovery follow the singer's phrasing. Duck only sounds that actually mask the vocal. A wide guitar may not need the same treatment as a centered synth. Detector filtering or dynamic EQ can focus the response. The advantage is not that sidechain is smarter than automation. It is that the vocal's real performance becomes the control signal, so the mix follows its changing dynamics. Tip 3 is musical sidechain. Use a trigger to give a sustained sound a groove. Put a compressor or volume shaper on a pad, chord, texture, or noise layer. Feed it a rhythmic trigger such as the kick, clap, shaker, or a silent ghost pulse. Now a static sound can breathe around the rhythm even when that trigger is not meant to be heard. A ghost trigger separates movement from the audible drum. Change the kick, mute a fill, or rearrange drums without losing the pumping pattern. The key can play quarter notes, offbeats, or syncopations. Use tempo math as a reference, not a command. A quarter note lasts 60,000 divided by the BPM. At 128 BPM, that is about 469 milliseconds. An eighth note is about 234. At 140 BPM, a quarter note is about 429 milliseconds, and an eighth is about 214. Release need not equal a division. Start near 1, then tune until recovery reinforces the pocket. A fast, deep duck feels percussive. A slower curve makes the pad breathe. The test is simple. Does the movement support the rhythm even when you stop staring at the compressor? Tip 4 is choosing between sidechain compression, manual automation, and a volume shaper. Sidechain compression is signal dependent. A louder trigger can create more reduction. That suits a responsive performance but can be inconsistent when every kick needs the same envelope. Manual automation gives absolute control over one guitar chord, delay throw, or chorus change. Its weakness is time. Repetitive curves are slow to draw and easy to miss after edits. A volume shaper follows a drawn curve from a rhythmic trigger or transport sync. It can create a repeatable duck without relying on threshold or trigger amplitude. That often makes it clean for precise electronic pumping, but it will not automatically react to a singer's changing phrase unless you build the control logic for that. Use compression for responsive repetition, automation for unique decisions, and a shaper for the same exact contour every time. A gentle compressor and one exceptional manual ride can coexist. Do not choose by habit or by plug-in fashion. Choose the control relationship. Should the duck follow signal level, a predetermined curve, or one hand-placed moment? Once that is clear, the tool usually becomes obvious. Tip 5 is ducking reverb and delay returns from the dry signal. Long effects create size, but they can also blur the phrase that created them. Put a sidechain compressor after the reverb on its return channel. Send the dry vocal, snare, or lead instrument to the detector. While the dry signal is active, the effect return moves down. When the phrase ends, the reverb or delay rises into the open space. This creates intimacy and depth. The direct phrase stays clear while the tail fills the gap. It is optional, a sparse arrangement may not need it, and an exposed ballad can reveal an unnatural swell. Get the reverb right first, then add compression. Use enough attack to avoid an unwanted snap and tune release so the tail blooms instead of surging between syllables. Delay may tolerate faster recovery than dense reverb. You can also duck only part of the return. A dynamic band in the vocal presence range can clear articulation while leaving low warmth and high air. The principle is the same. Reduce only the conflict, only while the dry source needs the foreground. Bypass at matched loudness. Lush is useful, murky is not. Tip 6 is using multiple sources without creating an unmanageable routing maze. Imagine a pad that should move around the kick, relax under the lead vocal, and make a smaller gesture when the clap lands. Many compressors expose one external sidechain input, but your DAW can usually combine sources before that input. Create a trigger bus, send the kick, vocal, and clap to it at controlled levels, then route that bus to the detector. The combined key responds to every selected source. Balance sends deliberately. A hot kick can create a deep duck, while a quieter vocal creates gentle movement. Split the jobs when they need separate envelopes. Do not assume one broadband compressor will somehow give the clap a mid-range duck and the shaker a high-frequency duck. Frequency-specific reactions require filtered detection, multiband processing, or dynamic EQ bands. A trigger bus combines level events. It does not automatically understand their musical role. Name the routing clearly. Sidechain key is easier to debug than an anonymous bus. Verify its pulses and make sure it is not accidentally audible. Complex sidechain networks should make the session easier to understand, not harder. If one simple vocal bus and one rhythmic ghost key cover the job, stop there. Tip 7 is frequency-selective ducking. Broadband ducking lowers the entire target. That is perfect when the whole bass needs to step away from a kick, but sometimes the conflict exists in only one range. A kick may overlap the bass mainly in the sub. A vocal may fight a guitar mainly through the presence band. Lowering everything can make the target sound smaller than necessary. Use a dynamic EQ or multiband processor with an external sidechain. Place a band around the area of real overlap, then let the trigger reduce that band only while the conflict occurs. The untouched frequencies keep the target's identity. Find the range in context rather than copying a frequency. Listen for where the sources obscure each other, then use the smallest useful range and depth. A wider, gentler band may sound more natural than a surgical notch. Detector filtering is a related option. Some compressors let you filter what the sidechain hears without filtering the audio you hear. That can stop cymbal bleed or low rumble from triggering unwanted reduction. This helps when full band compression pumps audibly, but temporary space is still needed. It adds time to EQ. The target changes only in the contested band and only when the trigger arrives. Tip 8 is creative group or whole mix pumping. The source described ducking white noise from a kick, making a melody stutter from a clap, and pushing an entire mix around the kick. These are no longer invisible repairs. They are sound design choices, and that changes how you judge them. A deep, fast duck turns a noise riser into rhythmic bursts. An offbeat ghost key can rephrase a melody. One shared envelope can make a synth bus breathe as a single instrument. Ducking the music bus is bold. Keep the kick outside it, leave headroom, and watch vocals, reverbs, and cymbals. Moving everything together may excite a dance section and distract from a verse. Build the effect at an exaggerated depth so you can hear the envelope, tune the timing, then decide whether to pull it back. That workflow is often faster than starting so subtly that you cannot tell what the controls are doing. Creative does not mean uncontrolled. The pump should reinforce a phrase, transition, or groove. If it continues unchanged through every section, it may stop feeling like movement and start feeling like a ceiling pressing on the song. Tips 9 and 10 are about control and judgment. Tip 9. Use a dedicated ducking or volume shaping tool when it makes the envelope easier to see, repeat, and edit. A stock compressor can handle many jobs perfectly. A dedicated shaper may be faster for a fixed rhythmic curve. A dynamic EQ may be better for frequency-specific space. The professional move is not buying a particular plugin. It is choosing the simplest tool that exposes the control you need. Understand what a preset assumes about routing, tempo, curve depth, look ahead, and gain. It is a starting point, not evidence of improvement. Tip 10. Always compare the processed and unprocessed versions fairly. Match perceived loudness as closely as you can. Louder often feels more exciting, and aggressive ducking can change both peaks and average level. Toggle the effect with your eyes away from the interface. Can you identify a clearer kick, a more intelligible vocal, or a groove that supports the song? If you only notice that one version is louder, fix the comparison. Then check mono and a limited playback system. Mono removes panning as separation, exposing low-end and mid-range relationships. The result need not sound identical, but its priorities should still make sense. If the effect fails the blind bypass or translation check, revise it. Movement is not automatically improvement. Here is the complete sidechain compression pass. 1. Use kick-to-bass ducking to clear a real low-end collision, with settings shaped by the sources rather than a magic preset. 2. Let the lead vocal gently move selected competing instruments out of the foreground. 3. Use an audible or ghost trigger to turn sustained pads and textures into rhythmic parts. 4. Choose compression, manual automation, or a volume shaper according to whether the control should follow signal level, one specific moment, or a repeatable curve. 5. Duck reverb and delay returns, so the dry phrase stays clear and the tail blooms into the gaps. 6. Combine several triggers through a named key bus or split them into separate processors when they need different envelopes. 7. Use dynamic EQ or multi-band ducking when only one frequency range is actually fighting. 8. Treat deep group or whole mix pumping as deliberate sound design, with headroom and section-by-section intent. 9. Choose a dedicated tool only when it gives you clearer control than the stock option. 10. Level match the bypass, check mono, and keep the effect only when the musical priority improves. One thread connects all 10. One sound temporarily changes another for clarity, groove, or drama. Define the reason, build the smallest routing that achieves it, and listen after the meters stop being interesting. When sidechain compression is transparent, the mix simply feels organized. When it is obvious, it should feel like part of the performance. Either way, the movement belongs to the song.